Hey guys, what up? Total Control 871 chiming in tonight with a memorial edition of Total Control Headline News. Let's get it started. All right, so tonight's going to be a doozy. We've got a few things we're going to be talking about tonight. Quite a bit of death going on in Florida. We have a 2-year-old that was tragically dragged to their death. An alligator in a man-made lagoon in Disney World. The fact that the lagoon was man-made really doesn't bode well for Disney, in my opinion. If I were a tourist, if I were staying there, I would definitely have the expectation that there is no hostile wildlife. I understand birds can fly in and out, but, you know, alligators? Serious? Um, from what I last understood, the child's body was recovered. How much of it I do not know. Those are indeed morbid, gory details that I probably don't really want to know. Anyway, moving on. Of course, the voice singer who was tragically shot and killed by her stalker. Apparently, she had a stalker. Stalkers are indeed a psychological phenomenon. I won't get into a big long thing on stalking. From what I understand, from what I have learned, the stalker ultimately seeks to liberate themselves from the obsession, and the best way that they do that is by killing their target, killing the person that they are obsessed with, and quite often killing themselves. They feel that to be their only means of escape, their liberation from the obsession. Moving on. Orlando. 49 killed, 53 injured. I really held off on commenting on this. It's kind of why my Memorial Edition is a couple of days late. I really wanted to just soak in everything that the media had been reporting. Um, I hesitate to use the term terroristic attack. I actually do. From what I'm able to glean, it's starting to look like this is a mental health crisis gone horrifically awry. Just my opinion. Um, Terrorism? The man started invoking the enemy of his enemy. Obviously, this is a person who had little to no connection with ISIS, Al Qaeda, Hezbollah. He was just throwing names out there at this point. He probably was idealistic. Well, obviously, he was a sympathizer. I'll give him that. But this person had absolutely no understanding of the faction that he was both advocating and killing for. Although I would hesitate to say that he was killing for ISIS. I think that was just simply a proxy. I think the whole terroristic thing was a proxy element. Just as our obsessed stalker seeked to liberate himself from his obsession, I believe that Omar Mati also seeked to liberate himself from his obsession sexual orientation. Um, Nobody has to case a joint for 3 years. If all you're planning is a mass shooting, a one-man mass shooting with, an establishment that has minimal security, um, you don't need 3 years to plan that, and you definitely don't need to utilize gay dating apps to execute this. So this was a man that was extremely angry at his sexuality. Now, I understand that there are probably many of you out there of the heterosexual world that might be having a little bit of difficulty wrapping your head around this. Allow me to explain. In Elin Harris's autobiography, he wrote of a sexual encounter. Um, the autobiography is called "What Becomes of the Brokenhearted." A very good read. I truly think you should give it a page turn. In it, he spoke of one of his very first sexual encounters as a young black man. Matter of fact, kind of escapes me. He may or may not have been legal. But the point is that during the sexual encounter, the person who he was sleeping with. Now, I'm being speculative here because Elon Harris used a lot of generalized language in the writing. He called it sexual encounter, sexual contact. With him being a gay black man, that he still couldn't shake a lot of stigma that goes along with being gay and black. You know, how feminine you are. Are you a top? Are you a bottom? Things like that. So I'm speculating here when I say this next part, but I believe that he was probably bottoming. He was probably receiving anal sex from whomever it was that he had met. I believe it was in a retail store. And at the end of at the end of sex, the person, the man that he was having sex with, upon climax, became extremely angry, violent, and then physically assaulted him. He punched him very hard. Um, Believe it or not, it's not terribly unheard of in the gay community. Gay men will end up hooking up with men who are extremely conflicted. I don't know how pervasive that is these days. God knows I haven't been active in the gay world in a very, very long time. Um, but it's not unheard of for closeted gay men, men who are highly conflicted for various reasons, be it religion, race, social stigma. So it didn't come as a big shock to me that this person became violent because they could not come to terms with their sexuality. And that is what I think that's what happened here. I would not classify it as a terroristic attack. I really would not. I understand that ISIS has indeed chimed in and post facto endorsed the attack. Which, frankly, to me, only kind of lends validity to what President Obama said in his post security meeting briefing speech about how a lot of ISIS has been killed, stamped out. You know, I understand a lot of it had to do was more so a propaganda, wanting the American people to feel secure and things like that. But also, there's probably a lot of truth to it. I mean, if you're a radical organization and you're so desperate that you will sanction, post factually sanction, and endorse what is clearly a gay man, something that you're technically against, So eh, they're scrambling. They're scrambling for every little bit they can get. All right, so those are my thoughts on Florida. Orlando. We've had three extremely tragic events. A 2-year-old killed by an alligator that should have highly been prevented, in a man made lagoon on Disney's property. Uh, Psychotic stalker, the voice singer, the contestant, young lady, and then Orlando nightclub Pulse. Very, very tragic. The names, the faces, all so very young, so much life left to give, brutally cut short. Um, so that's what's going on. I think I'll leave it at that. This will be a Memorial Edition. I do have more news, more updated news on the Kalamazoo, Michigan massacre, but I'll save it for a different edition. This one is definitely going to be dedicated to Florida and all of the uh, all of the tragedy that's going on there. I hope everybody in Florida knows that they have the support of this citizen journalist. Um, be watchful, be vigilant. I tell you what, I'll end on this. I'm gonna tack on. I was texting earlier with a buddy. He's very pro Second Amendment. What can I say? I'm not a knee jerk person, okay? I'm not a knee jerk person. I know it's so easy for liberals to just simply jump on the no guns bandwagon, you know? Speaking as a man whose lifelong ambition is to tour the world by bicycle, I would very much indeed like to do that with a firearm, you know? Um, how wrong is it that you can't even travel through your own domestic 50 states, without knowing if you're going to be arrested for being a law-abiding American citizen with a firearm? That single mother, I think last year, she foolishly accepted PTI, stands for pretrial intervention, because she was stopped with a legally owned firearm in her vehicle, but because New Jersey, oh, you can't have it in New Jersey. I'm sorry. Since when do states get the power to suspend the motherfucking Constitution? Explain that to me. How come states get the power to suspend the motherfucking Constitution? All right? There's a lot more I want to say on that, but I can tell right now that's going to be a different debate, a different a different blog. You know, I understand that there is, legal language that imbues states to basically be their own island. Each state wants to be its own island until national tragedy happens. Of course, you'll have New Jersey with its motherfucking handout for federal funds with the next storm that pounds the goddamn, shore. But you'll suspend a person's Second Amendment right. And a couple of years ago, when I traveled to my father's funeral, um, I couldn't help. I travel. Believe it or not, I laugh because I have no idea if I'm on a no-fly list or not, but frankly, I don't give a shit because, dude, those planes are not safe. All right, I don't want to fly. I have absolutely no intention of getting on those ramshackle. I do not trust avionic technology. I'm going to leave it at that. The planes have gotten old, and the planes that have been constructed as of late are done with very poor, crappy craftsmanship and material. So basically, the same rant that I have about uh, homes that are built today, it applies to everything, aircraft included. I simply don't trust it. All right, so anyway, I traveled by bus to my father's funeral in Florida, of all places, a couple years ago. And as I went through the various states, I could not help but notice that in the terminals, there were some of the most ghetto security. I'm sorry. I'm like thinking of. I'm just envisioning them in my mind. Trust me, it's not the beer that's making me laugh. It, they look like that much of a joke, okay? Excuse me. The security was a joke, okay? I remember there was this one, I forget if it was Atlanta or one of the Carolinas, I don't know. She had like 10 pounds of fake hair piled up on her hair, braided and all kinds of cockamamie. And she had on house slippers. House slippers. And she had a cup, a paper cup, like a paper Pepsi cup. Apparently she gets free soda throughout. I know. You're thinking that it's the beer and that I'm drunk. Maybe it is a little bit. I don't know, but trust me, I giggle my ass off whenever I think about this shit, whether I'm drinking or not. She's got she's got the cup and she's shuffling her feet, because it's just too much for her. She's a heavy, heavy black woman. Ah. And this specimen of security had a firearm on her hip. Firearm. This is what was going to stop whatever would come. Let me stop. I gotta bring it down. Bring it down. She wasn't the only one, okay? I observed this kind of ass clown security, ghetto security, very ghetto. This kind of joke of a security. Uh, the deeper south I went, and oh yes, with me being in security for good lord, 16, 17 years now. I definitely inquired as to how much they got paid, and change, jump change, 8, 9, maybe if you're lucky, $10. Wow, I was blown away. Considering the kind of personal liability you take on, wielding a firearm. Considering what kind of legal trouble you could find yourself in, okay, literally, it could be said that your wage wouldn't even afford a quality attorney. Okay, you would completely be at the mercy of the public defender system. You know, you just shot and killed somebody. I don't know. I guess you're going to work that stand your ground in those southern states for all it's worth. So, I said all that because here in New Jersey and in a number of other states, the Second Amendment is co opted. It is held exclusively in reserve for ex police officers, whether they resigned, retired, or even fired, you know. As long as their reason for getting fired wasn't a felony charge that would cost them their own and carry permit, you know, they can secure high paying jobs, you know. To be in armed security here in New Jersey, it can pay up to like 25 or sometimes more, you know, $25 an hour. It's very high paying. And it's nepotism. Pure D nepotism, you know. Those jobs are basically held in reserve for retired, wounded, terminated, be it their fault or not, terminated police officers. So it's something for them to fall back on should they lose their police jobs. So, but it's wrong. It's wrong that our Second Amendment rights should be co-opted like that and should be denied just so that a very select demographic can have a living wage, an ample living wage, you know. So my anger, if you want to call it that, over the Second Amendment bias, it has to do with money. You know, I really don't give a whole lot of shit about guns. Um uh, oh my god, it's like whenever I think about a gun and how it has to be maintained, okay, I think about my chain drive. I think about my chain drive and how I don't maintain it the way I should. You know what? Let me show you something. Hold on just 1 second. 1 second. Let's see if this can even be visible. I know some of you are like, oh my god, he's got a knife. Oh my god. Yes, I do have a knife. Can you see this? Look at this. Look at this. It's rust. It's rust. In the sheath, because the knife is strapped to the head tube of my bike, and it's not a rape whistle. It's a proximity location whistle, not a rape whistle. But the knife, it's in the sheath, okay, and it's strapped to the head tube of the bike. And of course, when I'm out and I ride in all weather, because you guys know I'm a car-free cyclist, year-round cyclist. Water goes down in there, and when I've been out in the rain, I need to take this knife out and just simply dry it off. That's it. That's literally all I would have to do to keep it from rusting. Obviously, I don't do that. So, I can just imagine, how bad I would be with a gun, I would literally, I would go to I would find a shooting range and be like, do you guys clean guns? Can I drop mine off and pick it up next week? All I ever wanted was a living wage. That's it. I don't care about guns. I don't care about because the buddy I was texting with, he's all up in arms. Oh my God, they're gonna take away the AR-15. Ah, you know, I really, frankly, don't give a shit. The only thing that I'm worried about, I just rented the movie Revenant, and granted, it was a musket, and I understand guns are a lot more. Well, number one, you don't have to sit there and spit fucking buckshot down into the modern guns, but yeah, I do get a little nervous, if I'm out there traveling the Colorados and our national parks, and all of a sudden there's a fucking big ass bear. I want to be, excuse the pun, loaded for bear. So that's all I'm really worried about. I really don't care about anything else. And if a 45 revolver will do that, then fine. Done and done. I'm happy with that. But yeah. So I know I'm getting super duper long here, so I'm gonna shut up. That's where my head is at with Orlando. It is a tragic, senseless massacre. Um, tonight, tonight I watched a particular movie, and I watched it because of Orlando, or to be more specific, the Orlando shooter. This movie was quintessential. What made the movie so quintessential was the fact that it dealt with a great deal of non conventional gay love. They weren't fabulous, you know. They're, they weren't fabulous. They weren't fabulous, okay? Dude, they were just two guys. And to be more specific, because I understand beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I do think both Heath and Jake are extremely handsome, but if you were to actually read the short story by Annie Prue, the way she describes them, there's nothing terribly remarkably handsome about Ennis and Jack. They're actually quite ordinary looking, and Jack is actually kind of he's kind of goofy looking. He's got like big teeth and shit or whatever. Um, so yeah, but the point is that I understand that this shooter was struggling with the fact that he was gay and unconventionally gay. Um, it's a shame that he couldn't understand that gay comes in all forms. You don't have to have the flair for a fabulous window treatment. It truly was his religion that and I think his father. His father, I think, played a great deal of influence in his life, much like the characters in Brokeback Mountain. The fathers played a great deal of influence in their life. Fathers can do that. I think John Mayer wrote that really great song. I think it was called Daughters. Mothers, be good to your daughters. And the bridge of the song. Boys, you can break find out how much they can take, And I think that's what our shooter was struggling with. I really do. By the way, I found out a couple of years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, my father, I'll talk about him and my sexuality in another blog. He did have a great deal of difficulty with it, but I did find out that in 2005, when Brokeback Mountain came out and swept the nation, he went to go see it. He told me this himself in one of our rare phone conversations. I'll talk about it in a different blog. But I can understand the shooter and feeling like you have let your father down. So I can understand a lot with what he may have been going through. And then there are parts of it where I just can't understand it all. Again, I'll talk about it in a different blog. All right, so we've got a number of tragedies in Florida. We have a 2-year-old dragged to death by an alligator, highly preventable. Disney ought to be ashamed of himself. It was a man-made body of water. They should have definitely had control. They should have had total control. A singer, promising career, viciously gunned down, and this was done by her stalker who sought to be liberated from his obsession. I think a lot can also be said for Omar Mati, the shooter of Orlando nightclub. I think he wanted to be liberated from his obsession, from his sexuality. He wanted to be liberated from these things, and this was his way of doing it. All right, guys, I'm going to end here because this has gotten so fucking long and it's going to take so fucking long to upload. All right, be kind to one another, and what can I say? It's rough out there. Be watchful, be vigilant. Get drunk. That's all I can tell you. Total Control 871.